Let's make some Zuppa Toscana Soup with Dutch oven bread, and I'm going to share with you my Piklohas Kitchenware review. So here are all the ingredients that we need for the Zuppa Toscana Soup, made famous by Olive Garden, but this is a copycat version. So we're going to need some Italian sausage, mild or hot, garlic, some whipping cream, potatoes, onion, kale, chicken broth, and some Parmesan cheese and some cooked bacon. And we're going to cook this in the Dutch oven. We're also going to make a crusty Dutch oven bread using that everything bagel seasoning. But first, let me share the Piklohas Kitchenware company has asked me to review these products, and I was very excited. I love the large 7-piece cutting board system with the stand. It's made out of acacia wood and it is high quality. It can also be used as a charcuterie board. I have a set of paring knives and a 10.6-inch bread knife, and it came with complete instructions on how to care for this. They are very sharp, the sharpest knives I've ever owned, and also how to sharpen them. So I'm really excited to share this with you because I love it, and I'm going to give an honest review. Even though they sent me this product, I always give an honest review. There are the cutting mats that you place onto your cutting board, and I will do some charcuterie boards later in the close to Christmas, so you can see how to use these to serve your guest. So let's get started on chopping up some of these vegetables for our Zuppa Toscana soup. Alright, here is the big cutting board that can also be used to serve crackers and cheese balls and fruits and vegetables. But the cutting board is on both sides, and there's also a little slip out cutting board right here. So we're going to use that to chop our onions. I love the stand that all this fits on. So here's a cutting mat, and I'm just going to place it right in the middle of that. And then I'm going to start chopping one yellow onion. So the knives are sharp, probably the sharpest knives I've ever used in my life. And I love them because I'm not having to struggle. So I'm going to slice this onion up with one of the paring knives, and then I'm going to chop it up finely. So the recipe did call for one yellow onion finely chopped, and it came out to almost 2 cups of onion. Now we're going to take some kale, some fresh kale. This was beautiful kale, and we're going to finely chop it with the same paring knife. It just cuts like through butter. It's wonderful. So I'm going to chop up this kale into small bite-sized pieces. For this soup, you can use kale or spinach, but I believe Olive Garden does use the kale, so that's what I want to use, and I'm going to do 3 cups of the diced up kale. Now we're going to take 3 russet potatoes, and I'm going to peel them with this paring knife that I'm reviewing. It is so sharp, and it went right through the potato skin. I love the curve in it. Makes the peeling potatoes, and I would think apples, very easily. I am going to cut these potatoes into 1 to 2 inch pieces and place them in the cold water just to keep them from browning before I add them to the soup. Now I want you to see how easily this stacks up in a very small spot. So for storage, this is perfect. I've got it right beside my fridge. Alright, let's get busy on our soup. I've got my 1-pound package of mild Italian sausage. If you like spicy, you could certainly use the hot sausage, but I am going to put this in the Dutch oven and go ahead and break it apart and brown that. Then after I brown it, I take it off the heat, and I've left a little bit of that fat in the bottom to saute the onions, and about 1 tablespoon of garlic minced. And I'm just going to cook that until translucent, and then add back in the sausage, and then we're going to add in some chicken broth, 1 whole container or 4 cups, and I will leave the recipes in the description box below. But we're going to bring that to a boil on the stove in the Dutch oven. We're going to cook this on a medium simmer, not a high, and once we start cooking it, we're going to be adding in the bacon. I've got 4 strips of bacon here that I have cooked earlier, and I'm just breaking this apart into the pot. And also to this pot, we're going to be adding in 1 teaspoon of sea salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Then the potatoes are going in, and then I'm going to give this a stir and then cook this on a medium heat for about 20 minutes. I'm going to set the timer. I don't want to overcook those potatoes. Now let's move on to the bread. In a bowl, I have flour, sugar, salt, and yeast. I'm going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of the Everything Bagel seasoning. This is all-purpose flour. Again, I'll leave the recipe in the description box. I'm going to whisk this together, and I have some very warm water sitting there, and we're going to add that right to the flour. And I'm going to mix that water in using a whisk. It's a very sticky dough, which is fun. And I'm just whisking that water all into the flour and going to make a nice round ball. Now I'm going to add a little bit of flour to it, to the top. And I'm just working that flour around and forming it into a ball. Then we're going to cover it with some plastic wrap. I've sprayed a little butter spray on it in case it rises up and touches. And then I'm going to put this over on the stove where it's nice and warm. And then we'll get back to cooking our soup. Now it's time to add in that kale. It's been cooking for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to add in the kale. The potatoes are nice and soft. And then we're going to add in 1 cup of whipping cream. Now I did go back and add just a little bit more, about another 1/2 cup, and we're going to stir that together. And then I'm going to let it simmer for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'm going to move this over to the crock pot and put it on warm for 2 hours. I don't really want the potatoes to cook anymore, but I'm not ready to serve it yet, so I'm just going to keep it warm over here in the crock pot. Now I'm going to need that Dutch oven to cook my bread in, so that's another reason I moved it over to the crock pot. And so I'm going to get that cleaned up, and then we're going to line it with some parchment paper in the bread. All right, our soup is going to sit here and sit on warm for about 3 hours, and it'll be fine. And then we're going to move on over to our Dutch oven bread. It has been rising for 3 hours. It's risen nicely, so I'm going to take a spatula and I am going to pull this out of the bowl. I have my parchment paper over there ready with some corn flour in the bottom. But I am going to first take this out and pour it onto the surface. I've got flour there ready. And then I am going to work with the dough using my hand and the spatula. And there's no kneading, there's no punching down. You just take your spatula and pull that bread over to the middle. And we're making a ball. And this is going to take another 30-minute rise in that parchment paper. So you can see the technique I'm using to pull the sides together. I'm putting that back in the bowl, and then we're just going to turn the bread over and plop it right in. Now I'm going to cover this with a towel, place it back over there at the oven where it's nice and warm, and let this rise for another 30 minutes. All right, 30 minutes later, let's check our bread. The oven has been preheating for over an hour at 450. I have my Dutch oven in there getting hot. I'm taking that paring knife and just scoring the top of this bread. Then we're going to open up the oven. You want a nice hot Dutch oven pot and lid. So I'm going to take that lid off. Oven is at 450. We are going to grab the bread up by the parchment paper and drop it right into the Dutch oven and put the lid back on. And we're going to cook this for 20 minutes. Then after 20 minutes is up, we're going to pull this up and we're going to take the lid off. I want that top to get nice and golden brown. So in about 8 to 10 minutes, we'll take it out and everything should be done. The top should be golden and delicious. And here it is. I'm going to pull it out of the Dutch oven. Look at that beautiful, huge loaf of round bread. Oh, this smells so good. Now let's make some supper. We're going to take the soup. It's nice and hot. Going to put it in these bowls, and this is so delicious. If you've ever had this at Olive Garden, you know how good it is. And I can't wait to dip that fresh bread right into this soup. I am sprinkling on some shredded Parmesan cheese, and then we're going to have a delicious supper. Oh, I'm excited. One more knife to go over with you, and this is the 10.6 inch bread knife that I'm reviewing, and I'm going to tell you, this cut through effortlessly. It was wonderful. It's a great knife. I've never had a bread knife. I was tickled, but look how delicious this bread is. We enjoyed every morsel of this bread. Nice, big, long pieces. I can do open-faced sandwiches with this bread. Breakfast on this bread. It is a wonderful recipe. Be sure to check it out. But again, I love that bread knife. Now here is our supper with the soup, and we're going to dip that bread right into that soup. And it was delicious. So I hope you will try this recipe. It is so good, the bread and the soup. And then I'm going to give a big thumbs up to this knife set, the bread knife, the paring knife, and the cutting board system. I love it. Make sure to check out the description box for links to all of these products. Thank you all for watching. Have a blessed day.